There was a time when life moved slower, when the world seemed bathed in warm, golden light, and every summer evening carried the soft echo of a song drifting from an open window. If you grew up in the 1970s, you remember that feeling, a kind of gentle magic tucked inside the rhythm of ordinary days. Back then, the music wasn't just something you listened to, it was something you lived inside of. Every melody seemed to settle into the corners of your life, turning small moments into memories that would never fade. Maybe you can still picture it now. A quiet American neighborhood, the kind where every house had a porch, every yard had a bike lying in the grass, and every driveway seemed to carry the faint smell of motor oil and freshly cut lawns. The sunlight hung low in the late afternoon, stretching across tree-lined streets like a soft invitation to linger just a little longer. Radios crackled from passing cars, big Chevrolets and Fords with bench seats and windows rolled all the way down, and somewhere in that mix of warm breeze and summer dust, a familiar voice would rise above it all. Maybe it was Stevie Nicks singing about dreams that slipped through your fingers, or maybe Don Henley, telling stories that felt like they belonged to you even before you lived them. Music had weight back then. It came from vinyl spinning under the soft glow of a living room lamp, or from a radio perched on a kitchen counter, tuned to a station that felt like a friend. You didn't shuffle through hundreds of songs. You didn't skip or swipe. You listened because every track had its place. Every note was part of a story someone had poured their heart into. And somehow, those stories slipped gently into your own, becoming part of the soundtrack of growing up. You might remember the thrill of buying a new record, walking into a small record shop with posters on the walls and the smell of cardboard sleeves mixing with dusty air, flipping through albums one by one, feeling the textured covers beneath your fingers, the bold fonts, the striking colors, the photographs that hinted at worlds you couldn't wait to step into. When you finally chose one, maybe Rumors or Hotel California, you held it like a treasure. You could almost hear the music just from looking at the sleeve, because in a way you already knew what it would make you feel. And when you got home, the ritual began. You'd slide the record out slowly, careful not to touch the grooves, place it on the turntable, and lower the needle with a kind of reverence. There was that moment of static, soft crackling, comforting, and then, suddenly, the room transformed. A guitar riff, a harmony, a voice filled with something real. It felt like time paused, like the world softened around you, leaving only the song and the way it made your heart feel fuller, somehow lighter but deeper at the same time. It's strange how those memories linger. You can forget names, faces, addresses, but one note from a song you loved in the 1970s can pull you back instantly. Back to a living room with wood-paneled walls, back to a couch with orange cushions, back to a night when your family sat together with the windows open, letting the warm breeze carry the chorus through the house. Maybe you were a child, maybe a teenager, maybe somewhere in between. But those moments had a glow to them, the kind only time can give. And if this journey through the music of the 1970s stirs even a single memory back to life, asterisk if it brings you that warmth you haven't felt in years, asterisk, consider subscribing for more stories like this, stories that help you remember the moments you thought time had taken away, because the 1970s weren't just a decade, they were a feeling, a slow-burning, sunset-colored feeling that wrapped itself around every part of life. You could see it in the fashion bell-bottoms brushing the pavement, wide collars catching the light, long hair blowing in the wind. You could see it in the cars, big, bold machines rumbling down the road like steel beasts with radios tuned to FM stations that felt like lifelines. And you could feel it in the way communities connected. Neighbors knew each other. Kids roamed freely, turning streets into playgrounds and backyards into whole worlds of imagination. But above all, it was the music that defined those days. It was the thread that stitched memories to emotions, the companion that followed you through long nights, quiet mornings, and everything in between. The songs weren't just entertainment, they were reflections of who we were becoming. They told stories about love, freedom, fear, hope, and the quiet ache of growing older. They brought people together in living rooms, cars, diners, drive-ins, and roller rinks. They filled the silence of long car rides and lit up the joy of Saturday afternoons with friends. In the 1970s, a song wasn't just something you heard. It was something that shaped you. It slipped into your bones, settled into your heart, and stayed there long after the record stopped spinning. And as the years passed, those melodies became something more than sound. They became memory, the kind that returns unexpectedly, like a warm breeze on a quiet evening or the soft glow of a lamp in a house you haven't lived in for decades. The kind that reminds you of who you were, who you loved, and the moments you never realized were precious until they were gone. Because the truth is, music has a way of holding pieces of our lives inside it. And when we hear those songs again, really hear them, we get those pieces back, even if just for a moment. That is the gift of the 1970s, and we're just getting started. The songs of the 1970s didn't just fill the background of life, they shaped the moments that defined who we were becoming. They drifted through summer evenings when the air was heavy with the scent of charcoal grills and freshly watered lawns, carried through open windows by a warm breeze that made the curtains sway like slow, gentle waves. If you walked down a suburban street at dusk, you could hear 3 or 4 different radios playing 3 or 4 different stories: Fleetwood Mac whispering heartbreak, Elton John painting galaxies with piano keys, the Eagles singing about roads you hadn't traveled yet but somehow already understood. Music traveled differently then. It didn't race through fiber optic cables or appear instantly at the tap of a screen. It floated. It carried weight. It found you, sometimes in the passenger seat of a car cruising down a 2-lane highway, sometimes through the thin, familiar static of a bedroom radio that you kept just low enough so your parents wouldn't tell you to turn it off, and sometimes through the record player in the living room, the one piece of furniture everyone treated like treasure. Maybe you can still picture that living room now, the soft, golden lamplight falling across shag carpet, the hum of an old fan turning slowly in the corner, the wood-paneled walls holding on to the warmth of the day. Maybe your family was gathered together, maybe you were alone, but either way, the room felt fuller when the needle touched the vinyl. You didn't scroll, you didn't skip, you stayed, you listened. The music filled the space the same way memories settle into the corners of the mind, not all at once, but softly, gradually, until you realize they've never really left. And outside, life carried its own rhythm. Kids rode their bikes in circles around the cul-de-sac, the little plastic clappers in their spokes creating that simple, joyful rattle that somehow sounded like freedom. Teenagers lounged on front porches, sharing secrets, dreams, and worries that felt enormous but would one day be the things they missed most. Parents sat in lawn chairs long after dinner was done, talking quietly as fireflies blinked across darkening yards like tiny sparks from a long-forgotten magic. Somewhere a radio would crackle with a familiar intro, a guitar chord, a drum beat, a harmony, and suddenly, everyone paused. Music had that power. It could freeze a moment, stretch it out, make it feel eternal. Maybe it was go your own way, maybe let it be, maybe take it easy. Whatever the song was, it mattered. It carried memories that would last decades longer than the night itself. And then there were the places where music became more than a soundtrack, it became the center of life itself. The roller rink, for example, was its own universe. The air inside always smelled like polished floors, sugar, and something electric you couldn't quite name. Lights spun overhead, casting shifting colors across the rink as people glided in slow circles, their wheels clicking softly beneath them. The DJ sat in a booth raised above the crowd, choosing songs that made hearts race faster than the skates ever could. When the opening piano of Tiny Dancer or the beat of Dancing Queen hit the speakers, everyone knew what the next few minutes would feel like: bright, alive, unforgettable. The diner had its own soundtrack too. Vinyl booths, chrome counters, milkshakes in tall glasses sweating under the glow of neon lights. Teenagers crowded into corner tables, dropping quarters into the jukebox and choosing songs that made their friends laugh or blush or close their eyes for just a moment. The music bounced off plates and silverware, turning ordinary meals into memories. You didn't go there for the burgers, you went because something in the air felt warm and dreamy, like a scene from a movie where everyone was young forever. Even the car radio had its own kind of spell. There was something different about listening to music while driving in the 1970s. Maybe it was the size of the cars, big, heavy, steady. Maybe it was the way the wind rushed through open windows, carrying the music out onto the highway. Or maybe it was the fact that time felt slower back then, like the world was content to let you take the long way home. The dashboard glowed softly in the dark. Headlights traced gentle arcs across the road, and the radio played songs that made you feel like the night belonged only to you. And if you ever sat in the back seat while the adults talked softly in the front, you know how safe that world felt. You'd rest your head against the warm vinyl, watching streetlights pass overhead like falling stars, the music blending with the hum of the engine. You didn't understand everything yet, but you understood the feeling secure to belonging, the quiet belief that life would always feel this gentle. But the heart of the 1970s wasn't just in how we listened, it wasn't how we lived the music. Birthday parties where someone brought a portable record player and everyone danced in the living room. Backyard barbecues where grown-ups laughed to the same songs their kids would someday pass down to their own children. School dances where the gym was transformed by crepe paper, balloon arches, and songs that made even the shyest teenager brave enough to ask someone to dance. And the thing is, none of those memories felt extraordinary at the time. They were simple moments, more rituals, everyday routines. But when a song from that decade plays today, something inside you stirs. You can almost taste the air from those summer nights. Feel the texture of the carpet beneath your feet. Hear the laughter that once filled your home. Because the music of the 1970s didn't just accompany your life, it wove itself into it. And decades later, the thread is still there, soft but strong, pulling you gently back to all the places you didn't realize you'd been carrying with you all along. The truth is, the songs that defined the 1970s didn't just belong to the decades, they belonged to us. They became the quiet companions of our growing years, echoing through the hallways of our homes, our schools, our hearts in ways we didn't understand back then. And even now, all these years later, the melodies return with the same vivid colors, the same gentle ache, the same sense that life, once upon a time, was softer in all the ways that mattered. Maybe you remember sitting cross-legged on the living room floor while your parents talked quietly behind you, the music from the stereo filling the spaces between their sentences. Maybe it was Landslide, maybe American Pie, maybe Bridge Over Troubled Water. Songs that didn't just play, they lingered. They wrapped themselves around you like a blanket, warm and certain, reminding you that the world was bigger than your small worries but still gentle enough to hold you. Or maybe your memory is of a bedroom late at night, the record spinning softly while you stared up at the ceiling, thinking about things that felt too big for your heart. Love, friendship, the future. You didn't know what your life would become, not yet, but the music helped you dream. It made you feel like possibility was something you could reach out and touch. And in the quiet moments, between one song ending and another beginning, you felt something rare: peace, stillness, the sense that everything was exactly as it should be. And that feeling didn't go away when you stepped outside. The soundtrack followed you onto sidewalks warmed by the sun, into cars that smelled faintly of gasoline and vinyl, through grocery store aisles where quiet speakers played the same songs your heart had memorized, into diners where laughter bounced off chrome and glass. The world itself seemed to sing along with you. Even now, decades later, it only takes a few notes to bring all of it back. A guitar strum, a piano chord, a harmony that rises slow and steady like the memory of a first love. Suddenly the years fall away and you are back in the glow of a warm American evening in the mid-70s, sitting on a front porch or leaning against the hood of a car the sky painted in streaks of orange and pink as the last light of the day slips behind the houses. A radio is playing somewhere, not loud, not demanding attention, but gently weaving itself into the moment, turning an ordinary sunset into something unforgettable. That's the power the music had. It shaped the way we remember time itself. You might have forgotten faces, addresses, even entire chapters of your past, but you remember how the songs made you feel. You remember the flutter in your chest when a slow song came on during a school dance. You remember the way your mother hummed along while washing dishes. You remember the way your father tapped the steering wheel during long drives. The windows down, the world unrolling in front of you like a ribbon of possibility. You remember the way summer felt, not because of the heat, but because of the soundtrack that carried it. And if these moments still resonate with your heart, if they stir that soft, familiar ache inside, you don't forget to subscribe for more timeless memories, more journeys back to the days that shaped who we are. Because there's something beautiful about the way music freezes time. The songs from the 1970s stayed with us not because they were perfect, but because they were honest, raw, human. They carried the same mix of hope and uncertainty we all felt as we grew up. They spoke about love in ways that felt real, about longing in ways that felt familiar, about life in ways that felt impossibly true. And they did it with a kind of beauty that remains unmatched. Think of how many versions of yourself those songs have seen. The child sitting quietly on the carpet, the teenager learning how to dream, the adult navigating the chaos of the world. The older self, you've become wiser, softer, more aware of how quickly the years pass, and yet the music never changed. It waited for you. It carried your stories and its melodies, ready to return to you whenever you needed it most. Maybe that's why the 1970s still feel like home. Not because the world was perfect, it wasn't. Not because life was easy, it wasn't always. But because the music gave those years a kind of warmth that time can't erase. It filled our homes, our cars, our hearts. It played during the moments that became important without us even realizing it. It held us through heartbreak, through joy, through the slow, tender process of becoming who we were meant to be. And when we look back, it's the music that guides us. It's the songs that remind us of our parents' laughter, our siblings' voices, our friends' footsteps on the driveway. It's the songs that bring back rooms we haven't seen in decades, streets we haven't walked down since childhood, faces we once believed we'd never forget. The songs of the 1970s don't just return memories, they return us to ourselves, back to the person who listened freely, who loved fully, who believed deeply, back to the world as it was, slower, warmer, more human, back to evenings filled with soft light and soft voices, where the only thing that mattered was the moment you were living. And maybe that's why we hold on to these songs so tightly, because in remembering them, we remember everything we used to be, everything we still are. So tonight, if the world feels too loud or too fast, put on one of those old songs. Let the first note settle over you like dusk on a quiet American neighborhood. Let the memories come not as they were, but as you feel them now, softened by time, brightened by nostalgia, kept alive by the simple beauty of remembering, because the world has changed. We have changed, but the music remains. It always will. And maybe that's the real miracle of those days. Not the vinyl, not the radios, not the record stores or roller rinks, but the way those melodies continue to live inside us. Long after the decade has faded, they are proof that some things don't disappear. Some things stay. Some things matter forever. And the songs that defined the 1970s, they are still playing. In our memories, in our hearts, in the echo of every moment we thought we'd forgotten. They are waiting for us, and every time we listen, every memory returns.